intermittent fasting.
Really? You do intermittent fasting?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Kevin Smith style?
12 and 8, baby. I only eat between hours of 12 to 8. Yes.
12 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
You don't eat breakfast?
No.
Do you drink coffee?
Black coffee. Big cup.
Yeah. So see, I cut out sugars out of my coffee. I only have milk and skim milk.
Cut it all out, baby. Yes, feel the heat. That's the heat of old men talking about their dietary restraints.
I find that when I get up in the middle of the night, I have to go pee, so I drink prune juice. Welcome, everybody, to the Heroes World Sidekick Show. We are live today, Monday, September the 20th. So for those who are listening on the earphones, John always likes to say for those who are listening at home, he always taps at his ears because we don't know those who are visually able to understand what this actually means. So for those who are listening at home, you are missing a great live show. So if you're listening on the Spotify, the iTunes, or the Amazon Prime, wherever you get your podcast, hey man, do us a favor, join us live Mondays at 8 o'clock here on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. As you can see, John is not with me, which means we are going to have a fun show. And instead, I have brought in our friend, our host du jour, the man who is the MC to the main podcast on Sundays. That is Mr. Stewart Pei. Stu, how are you?
Slow down, Slick. Thanks.
Get out of here. I got cocaine's a hell of a drug. No, I'm all jazzed up and I'm ready to go. We got a lot to talk about, but I gotta tell you, I am like super jazzed for our movie that we're going to be discussing tonight. But first, just wanted to give a shout out to those who are joining. John is not with us, and yet he seems, hey, let's go, guys, have fun. Hey, thanks, John. Really appreciate that. I see Lewis is in the his A, as the kid said in 2007. Before we get into the night's festivities, proceedings, we are going to just quickly recap what you missed yesterday on the Heroes World podcast. We did a review of What If, episode number 6. It was What If Killmonger had saved Tony Stark. Some interesting opinions on that. And then we also did a review of the first episode of Why the Last Man. Now, those are two different podcast shows, so definitely you want to check those out. Again, that was an interesting podcast, and Stu can attest because we had some of the people on the show, Stu being one of them, had read the source material, and one of us, being me, had not. And as typical for the role that John plays, he was right in the middle. He read the material, but had forgotten all about it. So we had a lot of fun being able to discuss the show, our thoughts on it, coming from different points of view of those who read the book, which, by the way, if you are jazzed to pick up a copy of Why the Last Man, Heroes World has a whole bunch of copies. They have the omnibus and some trades, so you definitely want to check that out. So this is all to say, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you do that, and also hit the notification bell, let you know when new videos drop. So with all of that said, I got some news for you, Stu.
What, pray tell, is said news?
Oh, take some water while I say happy 40th birthday to this guy.
Yes, happy birthday. I imagine that you are kayaking at this moment in time on a water somewhere, and hopefully you're watching this video at the same time. That'd be great.
Yeah, as the phone tumbles into the river. Is it a river or is it a lake do you think he's kayaking on?
River, calm, turning to rapid, turning to ocean, turning into calm river again.
Wicked. I'm just going to quickly say, Gordon says that the Tool t-shirt that I'm wearing is awesome, and it kind of looks like the Eternals' magic energy. You know what? Yeah, that's right. I never even thought about that. So what you're saying is the Eternals have ripped off one of the greatest rock bands of all time.
Whoa, greatest. Okay, I'm going to let that one just slide. It's your show today.
That's right. They are one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Okay, so listen, here's our, hey, listen, it's all a matter of how many greatest rock bands are there. There could be 100 in my list. Who the hell knows, right? But we're going to start off with last night's big television event, the award show given out to actors, actresses, directors, writers, and shows in general. They're called the Emmys. Stu, did you watch the Emmys last night?
I watched a bit of it, to be fair. I watched some Monday night or Sunday night football back and forth. It was a big Chiefs-Ravens game. So also been back and forth. I did see the Seth Rogen comments, which just he knocked it out of the park. It was the best thing about it. And then I kind of jumped back and forth. You kind of knew who was going to win the Emmys at this standpoint. You just carried on.
Did you happen to see? I did watch it. I inadvertently, I was actually watching a movie, and then my wife was like, "Oh, I heard the Emmys are on," which means, hey, turn them on. But following up on that Seth Rogen comment, the host last night was Cedric the Entertainer, and he actually about an hour or so later had come out and he said, just in response to Seth Rogen's earlier comments, we are following COVID protocols and this and that. They must have really loose COVID protocols in LA because there was zero social distancing whatsoever. Yep. But that being said, the last night's big winners, Ted Lasso, a personal favorite show of Stu's and mine. I've only watched season 1. I am waiting I need to watch season 2 all in one go. But that one, that cleaned up in the comedy categories for all the acting categories as well as best show. The Crown did the same thing for the drama aspect. It won all 4 categories in drama as well as, the top prize for drama show. I think the biggest upset though of the night was this limited series. Kate Winslet had won for the lead actress in limited series for Mayor of Easttown, and so did Evan Peters as the actor, otherwise known as Quicksilver for those in our chat here. And I think that was looking to be like a clinch for the overall series, and instead the Queen's Gambit came out of nowhere and took up. So that was a huge shock. Any shocks or snubs for you, Stu?
I like the Conan bit where he got up and he was like, classic Conan. I'd be shocked if Colbert ever, or that John Oliver never lost that award, or he wins it every year. You expected that type of thing. Typically, it's what happens in the Oscars, where a lot of actors are given that nod, but the best picture goes a different direction. So this is on brand with Hollywood. It happens all the time. A really great movie falls through the cracks and gets nothing. So it happens.
This past weekend, moving on, it was Batman Day on Saturday. Did you wear your underoos, your Batman underoos, to celebrate?
No, I did not, but I did call my butler and give him the day off.
So good for you, buddy. There you go, man. That's nice.
These are things what you do.
I tried to get my wife to wear a Catwoman mask and it didn't work out, but that's neither here nor there. But if those who are interested in wondering what was happening with Batman Day and the new the Batman movie coming out, Matt Reeves did post a little a picture of Batman while he was in the editing bay. Is a picture of Batman with a grappling gun. He is putting together a new trailer that will come out in 4 weeks on DC Fandom as well. The composer Michael Giacchino, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Maybe not. He's doing the score for the Batman, and he had it was a 28-second clip, of which 6 seconds was really of the actual score that he has composed, and they were in the midst of recording for the movie. It sounds very dark and gothic and operatic, and I'm very excited for it. And as well, Andy Muschietti, which I am probably butchering his last name. He is the director. He was the director of the It series 1 and 2, and he's also, as you know, we've talked a lot about it on the show, the director of the new Flash movie, the upcoming Flash movie that stars Michael Keaton. Over the course of the months, he's been releasing photos of the new Flash costume, the Batman 89, although it's really the Batman 92 costume, and the Supergirl costume. Well, yesterday he shared. And maybe it's because of Batman Day. It was a day late, but whatever. A photo of, and for those who are listening, it is of Batman, a Batman 92 costume, spray painted red with a yellow lightning bolt right through the chest, making it look like the Flash. So, Stu, first of all, 1, do you care?
Nope.
Okay, perfect. 2, do you have any idea who this might be, or do you think it's irrelevant?
Irrelevant. I think it's just like when you do a comic book cover where the front of it always sinks you. You're like, look, Batman's beating up in it. And you open the book. It's like, this has nothing to do with that panel. It's just, marketing. They're doing something different. That's fine.
There's a lot of people online
see.
who are making the assumption this is Red Death. So for those who may or may not remember, that came out of the DC Metal book that Scott Snyder did, where essentially Bruce Wayne's from different multiverse were killing off people, and Bruce Wayne decided to kill the Flash and absorb his powers and became Red Death. So this could
be Mephisto. Who knows? Let's keep on rolling.
Oh, that's man, you can't do that. People are gonna start saying that now.
Give me Mephisto.
Speaking what? You want Mephisto? Really? For real? Okay.
Hold
on. Speaking of the Flash, as you know, Ezra Miller is reprising his role, but he first started in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And one of Stu's top 6 movie choices was Zack Snyder's Justice League cut. And it is in his top 6. You're lying.
Nope, incorrect.
Nope, I'm not. So for
not even the top 600. Not even the top 100.
Yeah, first of all, you have to revisit your 600 list. That's atrocious.
I can tell you, she's all that is ahead of that cut. So
I shall punch you. So we are looking at. So last week, the Blu-ray came out. For those, I've been tweeting and I've got it. It's behind me somewhere on the shelf here. However, it dominated Blu-ray sales. 75% of all Blu-ray sales were of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and of course, then the counterpoint to this would be, well, who the hell still buys Blu-rays? And the counterpoint to that counterpoint is this guy.
What you don't know is that a whole truck pulled up with 10,000 copies in the back of Rob's garage, and now he'll be selling them on the street wholesale. So that's his side budget.
I wish, dude. I would be making mint buck. Let me tell you right now. I mean, making mint. And lastly,
flea market selling them for 2 for 1.
They close it down, Stu. Thanks for bringing up harsh memories. And lastly, we are this coming Saturday. Netflix is doing their own version of the DC fandom. They're calling it Tudum. And it is essentially showcasing all of their upcoming movies and TV shows. There's going to be lots of trailers. I'm sure Red Notice will get some attention with The Rock. There's going to be some Stranger Things. Umbrella Academy will be dropping a trailer. So there's a lot happening. And if you're wondering, wait, what did Netflix call it? It's Tudum. And if you're thinking, what the hell does that mean? Just fire up your Netflix app on any streaming device. And it's the sound that the giant logo makes when it fires up. So there you go. You're welcome, North America. I have brought you the news.
Womp womp.
Yeah, there we go. And that's all I got for news. And as to what's new coming in the store, I got nothing. I'm like John Ho. I got nothing. He didn't let me know what was coming in the store. However, I do imagine some new comics are coming out this week. So definitely you want to follow all the social media channels to see what new comics, new trades, toys, board games, and everything else are coming up. You can follow Andre and John at Heroes World Online. And now the main event. Stu, are you ready? I have actually nothing to tee this up in terms of like a graphic or anything else.
Are you gonna at least quote something from the movie? Can you give me give me your favorite quote?
My favorite quote.
Wow, you don't even have that ready queued up.
Because I would butcher it and you're gonna call me out. But essentially, it was a man told me once that if you smell the heat coming around the corner, you have 30 seconds to ride or die, or mi familia and this family. I'm not too sure. But...
Wow. Okay.
All right. Anyways, hey, we're talking heat. Woo. We are talking heat. I'm feeling heat right now from Stu for butchering that. You know, which is really funny. Yeah, I had just rewatched the diner scene right before we jumped on, and for some reason, it's like a fart in the wind, my friend. It has gone from my memory.
The action is the juice, indeed. Clearly, you have forgotten everything.
Wow. Alrighty.
Okay.
Hey, so listen, everybody, thank you. First of all, again, thanks everybody who is showing up, who are in the chat. We appreciate it. This is the Heroes World Sidekick Show. Lewis is asking what the hell that was. Don't know. But we are
Rob was trying real hard to quote a line that Bob did several times in the movie.
Yes.
I believe
3 times.
Several times talking about his life lessons, valuable things that he's learned in life. Lessons he's learned includes basically talking about how at a moment's notice you must leave your life behind.
Right.
So to summarize that, yes.
I think though, if it was Amy Brenneman, I would leave. It's okay. But we were talking about 1995's Heat, directed by Michael. Here's my impression of John. Directed by by Michael Mann, 1995, released December 15th. So quite the Christmas movie, Stu. I'm not sure what your thoughts are. A budget of $60 million. It pulled in $187.4 million. Rotten Tomatoes had it at 87% fresh. And the late, great Roger Ebert gave the movie 3.5 out of 4 stars. Now, if you're wondering what the hell is Heat, what is Heat? Isn't that the Melissa McCarthy movie? No, that's called The Heat and has nothing to do with this. This is a movie starring Robert De Niro and Al Pacino together for the first time. And don't come at me, all those who are going to say, no, weren't they in Godfather 2 together? No, they were both in the movie, but they never were in the movie together in the same scene. So this is the first movie where they both starred together, which was huge. I remember it being a huge thing back then when they announced that you had Bobby De Niro and Al Pacino together in a movie acting opposite one another. That was huge news in every entertainment magazine, whether, from the Toronto Star, the section, or from Star Weeks magazine or whatever it was. So
it's still a quick point. This movie came out in a wondrous time for all you kids back home that have access to all the technology. It came out when there were still VHS tapes out. So when this movie came out in 95, immediately it came out to VHS first.
You did.
And they didn't give you a widescreen edition. So that started the whole tale or the whole rumor that De Niro and Pacino weren't in the diner scene together because you could never see them in the same shot. And only till later on when you got Blu-ray, you're like, oh no, there's a crop of them together. You can see them that knocked out that rumor, that wise tale that, they were just like this movie, they were never together at any point in time.
Okay, so actually I had messaged you before the show and I said that I gave you some of the questions we're going to talk about tonight, but I did say I had a question for you about the diner scene. And I'm glad you brought this up because when this came out and was released on VHS, I mean, it was 96. I saw this movie in the theaters. And then I had grabbed it on VHS and was watching it numerous times. And you're right. Here's the problem, is that my memory of this movie was that it was a pan and scan shot. So they didn't have letterbox. There are very few movies that were released on VHS. Just go to the Wayback Machine, kids. Very few movies that were released on VHS were in what they call letterbox, which is where you had your bars at the top and the bottom, right? And so they did this thing called pan and scan, which is what the computer essentially would just shift what they called the camera. They would pan over to the next person talking, and then they would pan over back. Now, then it came out on DVD, right? Which is what I have right here, the upside down, the DVD. And they corrected that. The problem is, in my memory, I thought, because of the pan and scan memory, that both actors were facing one another in that diner scene. To the point where I'm not going to lie, for the last number of days, I've been scouring the internet to see, did he recut this scene? Did he add it for the DVD? Because I swear to God, they were facing each other and that the camera would go from one actor to the next. But apparently, no, he never shot it that way. He said, he being Michael Mann, the director, said, if I was to shoot it head on, that makes them more like friends. And they were not friends. They were adversaries. So I shot it this way so that you had Pacino on that side and De Niro here. And then obviously, the reverse of the camera angle. I got to tell you, I've actually been going bananas trying to figure this out. But I guess it must be like that Mandela effect where I swear I thought I saw it and my brain has put it in.
Rumor that exists, like flat earthers believe, and thus you fell into the trap.
That's right. However, but they did do a pan and scan. They never had both on VHS until it came out on DVD. So do you remember that? Do you remember that pan and having to watch?
I do remember. It's why, for all you kids home and me as the old grandpa, tells you to watch Lawrence of Arabia, watch Cleopatra, watch some of those old classic movies, and it's golden cut because man, oh man, those shots are wonderful and beautiful. And when they had the panorama back when you watch Turner Classic or whatnot, you miss so much of a movie. And that's why I recommend going back and watching it on theatrical, on widescreen, because there used to be movies you could buy them, good old history lesson, both in widescreen and regular.
Yes.
And I would always recommend, Sound of Music. Good one too, Lewis. So
In
there
fact,
are movies that...
Yeah, I have some DVDs where it's widescreen on one side and you flip the disc and it's regular version on the other side.
Yep. It's a thing. So it's man, it's such a weird time to talk about movies when that was the thing. You didn't have access. It was 2 VHS tapes, and then it became 1 DVD, then 1 Blu-ray, then 1 4K. So I think even Star Wars, if you can get yourself a theatrical cut, it's way better than the regular. So.
For sure. So for those who may not have watched it, or it's been a very, very long time since they've seen this movie, you know what? You don't need to do a huge summarization of the movie. This essentially is a cat and mouse game, a classic crime robbery movie where you have a detective who is on the hunt for these master criminals who are, bank thieves, robbers, who are taking down bearer bonds from armored trucks and looking for the big score. They're looking for the big score, the big kahuna, to be able to then escape to a non-extraditing company, maybe a beach in Fiji or Tahiti, where Tom Cruise is singing, margaritas. But that's their goal, is to get this final score. And you have Al Pacino, who is the determined police officer who is on his third marriage and who is struggling with a family. And he is more married to the job than he is to the wife. And he's trying to track these guys down. And there is a modicum of respect between Pacino, the detective, and Robert De Niro's bad guy, because they're both on the same level. They're just on opposite sides of the coin. And will Pacino come out victorious as the cop? Will he get his man, or will Robert De Niro decide to be the better man that day and pull off the ultimate score and hence get away? And that's a very watered down summation of the movie. But because it's still streaming on Amazon Prime, if you haven't seen it, or if it's been a really long time, I would really want you to go back and check out this movie, because there are so many great things about this movie. And then we're going to talk about, but I have a couple of cool things. I did some research on the movie, Stu. I'm not sure if you're aware of this. This movie was originally based on real events from 1964. Of course, because you've probably done the research yourself, right? 63. Yeah. Okay. So De Niro's character, Neil McCauley, was actually an inmate at Alcatraz. He got out. He didn't escape. He got out, and he went back to his jewel thieving ways, and essentially was being chased by Al Pacino's character. Now, his character is loosely based off of this guy, Chuck Adamson, which you can tell by looking at De Niro. He's not a Chuck or an Adamson. So, but their famous diner scene that we just talked about with the pan and scan, that apparently a lot of that dialogue was lifted right from the actual conversation that those two individuals had back in the 60s. So that's really cool. And the shootout at the end of the movie is kind of how it all played out between the two. So that was a kind of neat to know that it was kind of based and taken off of an actual event. What also is pretty cool is that you forget how long Michael Mann has been in the game for, right? I mean, for those who maybe had kind of come of age in the 90s, you're thinking Heat, you're thinking some of these other movies, but man, this guy was all the way back in the 80s with Miami Vice. And even before that, he actually tried to make this movie, Heat, into a TV show back in the 70s. It never went anywhere. He even tried giving it to, he essentially gave it to some other directors. Like, here, then you do something with this. And nobody could actually crack it and get it made. He actually did shoot a TV pilot called LA Takedown in 1989. Apparently you can get it on the black market now or whatever. You can find it somewhere. And
streaming. Yeah, you can find it. I think somewhere on YouTube.
But yeah, you could just LA Takedown, and that was in 1989. And within 6 years, he said, "Screw it, I'm just going to make this a movie." And he does it, and which is the movie we're talking about tonight.
It's shot for shot. The bank scene is the exact same in that TV show, except for it's half the budget. So it's very noticeable. It's pretty much shot for shot Heat.
Well, and so here's, though, for me, what is the craziest thing, and I hope I can kind of get this across to those who are listening and watching. They shot this movie over 172 days or so in the summer of 1995. And if that's crazy, it's because this movie was released in December 15th of 1995, which means they shot it all out on the streets. There was no sound stage. Michael Mann did not want to create sound stages and sets. They shot it out all on the streets. Everything was done in houses and everything else like that. They shot it over 172 days in the summer in LA, and then he cuts it, edits it, has it scored, and is out in theaters in 3 months. Like, That to me is like that blew my mind when I read that. I like that does not happen nowadays. You don't even get indie movies with a turnaround time that quickly.
That gun scene was 6 weekends. They shut down that street in LA for 6 consecutive weeks during the weekend to do that 10-minute gun scene with Val Kilmer and De Niro. So yeah, it's awesome. It's crazy. I heard some fact too that and shout outs to the source. I heard it was, I think it was Bill Simmons was saying about it, that Chris Ryan actually was saying that out of the 86 locations in LA that they used, only 10 had been used in film before. So everything in there was like very LA, very specific, all brand new. And to this day, if you went there, that's why it feels so real, because those sets were not, hey, this was filmed here before, let's use it again. Like you watch every New York film and you watch John Wick, they have that same, pretty much the same area park they're using. So this is a very LA centric film, and he used real locations and real scouts to basically put it together. So that's why this movie feels so real, because everything is basically a real life location.
So I've got some questions for you, Stu. Give me your unfiltered, unredacted reaction to this movie.
I don't think I appreciated it when it first came out. Heat, I watched it. I think I snuck into a theater to watch it. I don't think I was.
Were you a young fella in 1995, Stu?
Oof. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was probably something I think it was rated R. So I don't think I was able to. But I snuck into it. I watched it. At that moment, I'm like, wow, this is really cool action, and I got the film. But now, as I've gotten older and we rewatched it a dozen times, the nuances, the performances, it's gotten better after every time I've watched the movie. And now I tend to, when I watch the movie, just not even to pay attention to De Niro and Pacino. I just look at everyone else and notice the details. Like I told you the other day when we were talking about it, like that first scene, even Michael Mann talks about it before, when Bob De Niro walks through that scene in the airport, like, he doesn't touch anything with his hands. It's the nuanced performance. Like, he uses his elbow. He doesn't want fingerprints anywhere. And he's scouting and looking, and all that little nuance of realism is something that I didn't appreciate. And looking at now, where the villain is a character that you appreciate, and the fact that Michael Mann said this is not even a genre film. This is a movie upon itself, because you understand both characters, both the good and bad, see their perspectives. And it's just like any of his films that he's done, where you understand the bad guy. And that's the whole basis of like Breaking Bad and of basically all these anti-hero bad guys that you don't want to die.
No, you're rooting for them.
You're rooting for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And that takes a special, first of all, it's a special actor to be able to convey that. It's a special, like words being, that you were being told to say from a script, and a director to be able to, for those three elements to come together for us as the viewer to essentially stop believing in every moral fiber that's been ingrained in us since childbirth, and then say, we're going to root for the bad guy.
Well, that Michael Mann's basically created prestige TV. Every single thing that he's done, whether it's Manhunter or this, is basically a 10-episode Netflix show. Like, you could watch Heat in 10 episodes and just be as satisfied as watching Heat, the 2-hour plus movie. So this is the nature of what he's done, and I don't think I appreciate it as much as I do now. And after rewatching Heat on a whim, us talking about it on the weekend, I've watched it 3 times already. Right. So it's unbelievable. Yeah, I watched the regular director's cut and the commentary all over again. So that's a lot of time watching Heat.
I don't know if people, like Lewis in 1994 said he was 14 years old, which makes me feel very old. But I don't know if people can really appreciate how huge this was to have, and no pun intended, the godfathers of acting, right, on screen, and just watching them, like it was like butter. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were just treated to such finesse watching these two masters in their class, saying their lines, even though Pacino does full Pacino, right? He goes into like Scent of a Woman territory. And starts,
But I told you there's a reason for that. That's why I don't think it's Scent of a Woman Pacino. As we discussed before on a previous one, that he's basing his performance that when he was given that script, he was told that this character had a cocaine addiction. That's why he's frantic. That's why even the diner, his eyes are widgeting back and forth. There's a nuance to that performance. And when you recognize that this whole movie, he has a cocaine problem, this movie all of a sudden changes drastically. Because again, even our good guys have problems. And that's something that didn't happen in those movies back in the day. When you're a good guy, you're a good guy.
So then, but do you think though you're happy that they actually took out that narrative? Because then it becomes
there's too much in that movie.
It becomes too much like Bad Lieutenant, right?
Well,
right. Like if you think like Bad Lieutenant came out just a couple of years before that, so that there you could easily draw then a parallel between Harvey Keitel's Bad Lieutenant and this in terms of the the down and out cop on his third marriage.
Show, it would have been fine. It would have been Percocets or whatever. It would have been something just same thing. It would just be some sort of other drug, painkillers he would have been on, and his addiction instead of like if we would have known what we know now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, aren't you glad though that they did remove that?
The movie's long enough. Think about even rewatching it. Man, on TV, they ripped that movie to shreds to show it. Like, and when NBC played it on primetime, it's like, oh, we're gonna cut your film by 45 minutes to fit it in a 3-hour window. That's not Heat. That's a whole different movie. Yeah. So I as much as I kind of want that to be there are a lot of things you could cut in this movie, but that's whatever. Let's keep on going. So
we talked about like this movie comes out in the 90s, and for me, I had kind of alluded to off camera before we started on the show. I had watched this movie a lot, and Stu had watched it a lot. I mean, obviously 3 times this past weekend, but before we watched it a lot, there's always a handful. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are on listening or watching this right now who can relate to this. There's always a handful of those movies that you would kind of rewatch on a yearly basis or whatever. And this was, for me, was one of them. But the problem is, because we only had such a limited selection of TV shows or movies every year, you only had a half dozen good movies a year that you would watch. Now it doesn't stop. And so the more we've grown because of all this Netflix and Crave and Hulu and Disney and all this other shit, you start to forget about movies like this because you're distracted with everything else that we're kind of consuming. But back in the 90s, I watched this a lot. I watched Scarface a lot. I watched Pulp Fiction, The Godfather. Like for me, like the 90s for me were like the crime cinema period. So my question is, did you find yourself stuck not stuck, but I guess stuck in this period of crime movies like Blood In, Blood Out and all those gangster movies and everything? Did you find yourself kind of surrounding yourself with this type of genre of movie?
Not at all. I think that a lot of us who had TBS back in the day just watched what was on TBS. And
Saved by the Bell.
What was on all the time was Shawshank Redemption, baby. Anytime of day, anytime of night, Shawshank was playing. And I was on the trap. I told you it's my favorite movies. No matter where it is in Shawshank, I'll stop, even though I own it on Blu-ray, just start watching it when it's happening. I think for us kids back in the day that had cable, that really dictated a lot of our taste, because whatever was played. And Heat was such a difficult movie to play. Shawshank was played and they removed some scenes. And you look at, they played on TBS or AMC back when it used to play just movies. A lot of things, all those type of movies were on repeat. So, I kind of was never really that big into Scarface. It wasn't really my jam. And I think, come to think of some of those other movies, like I love Goodfellas, but Goodfellas wasn't all like, and that was played a lot as well. So I think it also depends on what was on TV. That's what it is. You flip through, and if you're lucky to have the movie network, then you got a couple things there. But like your point is correct. Now with Netflix and streaming, like we sat there, Rob and myself, looking behind the curtain, behind the scenes, talking. We're messaging back and forth about movies. We had like 50 movies we shot.
2 hours.
Like back and forth. What about this movie? What about that movie? What about this movie? And like, but you can get access to any of them you want. So it's not difficult to get the movies. It's just, to your point, it's anything happen.
But I found that like the 90s for me, like if my recollection of the 90s, and I worked at a video store at that point, like I have a very fond memory of the 90s. The late 80s and 90s. I was, I turned 20 in 96. So for me, like the grunge era was huge. Like that, I just have a very fondness. But I also remember, like, for me, cinema like exploded in my head. Like I was always a movie guy. I loved watching movies and TV show. But in the 90s, cinema, everything changed. Reservoir Dogs changed my life. Pulp Fiction changed my life and how I watched narrative, like movies and narration and storytelling. And so you had Quentin Tarantino coming out with these movies. You had Heat. You had all of these crime movies. Like, again, I mentioned like Blood In, Blood Out, and you had Boys in the Hood, and what was it like? Because I mentioned Scarface, and I know that was the 80s, but what was it about the 90s, do you think, that propagated this explosion of crime cinema? Or is it just me and I'm just not being
I think there's a lot of movies that came out that period. I think a lot of it was dictated on what was available to you, whether you had those premiere channels or not. As Gord said, those movies benefited from less CGI and less special effects and whatnot. Like the movies you saw were done on purpose with smaller budgets. You didn't have to wait for 20 different CGI houses to make those movies for you. So it is different. I think if you have this conversation with your kids now, I think it's a very drastic. They have the world. They could watch any movie anytime at their fingertips. And I would like to know what they would choose, because their dialogue for you would be completely different, because they have any movie of their imagination available to them. Hundreds of thousands of movies, because I know how many subscriptions you have available to them. And their choices are going to be completely different. But a lot of ours was dictated on, again,
availability,
on TV, or what you owned on DVD or VHS, what you deemed was worth it. And I think that those type of movies on the replay are worthwhile. And maybe your parents would let you buy it, as opposed to some comedies where maybe a little raunchy, and then you couldn't get access to them. So
because case in point, I mentioned this before. When Batman Returns, I remember going to a buddy's cottage, and they had a TV, the VHS, and they only had 3 tapes, 3 movies. And I watched Batman Returns that one summer, and it was like the late 90s, but I watched it something like 33 times over a weekend, because it was just 5 days. It was raining, so you couldn't do anything else. You kept watching Batman Returns. So you're right, is all it was available. Nowadays,
it's the same thing with
I go to cottage and I bring up my Apple TV with me and sign in.
It's the same thing with video games, right? Like, you got one game a year if you're lucky, and you got Mario Kart or Super Mario Brothers, and you played that nonstop because you couldn't get another game. Now you can download a million games on your mobile phone or on Steam or whatever method you want. Games are relatively available all over the place. But back when we were young, it's like, you better be good. You get this one game for the next 6 months, if not year. Yeah. Good luck.
But then they were so hard back then. They would take you 6 months for you to beat it. So you bring up an interesting point, because you're saying that hey, this is all we had at the time. And so this movie is 26 years old. And I know that the answer to this question from you is going to be yes, of course. But does it hold up? Of course. And if so, but why? Because we have a whole bunch of movies that are just the same age, same vintage, that are comedies, dramas, even some superhero movies that are close to that age, that aren't holding up. So why is Heat? Why does Heat hold up, do you think?
I think it's the fanatical nature of Michael Mann. The fact that when he filmed Last of the Mohicans or whatnot, he forced everyone to live there and wear moccasins and be all over the place. This movie, he had like all the small nuances. Like when Michael Williams was talking about bubblegum shrimp,
right, yeah.
when he talked about, there was a time when they had a dinner and he brought a bunch of LA cops and he brought a bunch of professional criminals together. He had the actors that were cops and their wives sit down with the police officers' wives and have an interaction. And then he brought the criminals together and their wives, and they had dinner, and then they let the other groups interact with each other to see how this cat and mouse thing would operate. So little details like that that you wouldn't necessarily see on the screen, and including of which that whole fact that, the gunfight itself, like you could do now where it's John Woo shooting guns sideways, and there's a special fun joy in that. But the fact that, they train months at a time with LA's, and SWAT crews to basically make sure that Val Kilmer was doing the gun reloading and the fact that and the firing correctly, that now they show that scene of Heat at like Fort Briggs and like in the special forces training of like how fast you could unload a clip and do everything in real time.
Yeah.
So there's just a nuance of how that movie, because also it's that special place where they didn't have cell phones, so the cell phones.
I was just going to mention that too. It was a lack of technology that dated it.
Like Neil had a cell phone, but it wasn't like he was using it to do stuff. Like now, when you watch movies, when you had the Nokia to like touch stuff in, it's like one thing. This is like it had it, but just enough of it. The fact that you could lose someone in a tail. Now there's cameras everywhere. You couldn't lose anyone if you wanted to. They could fly a helicopter and infrared. The fact that, in one scene, they're like, we lost all of them. You could lose someone in an LA airport. So this is a very special nuance in terms of realism in that film. And like you said before, everything's real. Everything's done in a way. And the acting was superb. So, and everyone's also real. It has the realism of the actors and who was casting it. It's no different than The Wire when they cast real people in these films. So it's everyone in it, including every actor in it, you totally believe that they are who they say they are. Even they have every character actor from Danny Trejo to to William Fichtner in it. So that's one of those things where these guys are good at what they do, and that makes the movie, the world, real and feel like it's actually lived in.
So that then brings me to my question about the cast. So we can just run down the cast real quick. We had, De Niro, Pacino, Val Kilmer, and his massive goiter on his elbow, which I got to tell you, when I first saw it in the theater, I was like, what the hell's wrong with his elbow? Like, I was always fixated with this giant.
You know why? Did you find out why?
I did find out, but as a kid, I was like, as a kid, as a young guy, I was like, is this part of his character? I ended up finding out that he broke his arm on the set of
The Doors.
Is it The Doors? Yeah.
The Doors.
And it's not, he was doing a diving scene off in one of the clubs, and one of the stunt guys, they didn't catch him, and he fell, broke his arm, and they reset it funny. And because the doctors had reset it kind of in a weird way, it formed this like massive goiter on his elbow. But the problem is that it's so distracting at times. Like I think it got paid its own salary. Val Kilmer, Ashley Judd, Tom Sizemore, Amy Brenneman from Judging Amy, John Voight, who's gone a little bit cuckoo, a young Natalie Portman, who had just done The Professional like 3 years before that. Buffalo Bill, Ted Levine, Micheletti Williamson, who you said was Bubba Gump from just a couple years before that in Forrest Gump, Dennis Haysbert, President Palmer himself from 24, Danny Trejo, and Hank Azaria, which was kind of funny, and of course a special shout out to Jeremy Piven, and my personal
no wig, Jeremy Piven, no wig.
Yeah, no wig, Jeremy Piven. He was
his
back
PCU
in his
hair.
I was gonna say PC, and then of course, I think it was his first role. It was Henry Rollins, was the bodyguard for the banker, played by William Fisher. So I just flew through that cast. But what do you think? Like, who? We obviously know De Niro, Pacino are gonna be at the top of their game. What else do you have? Who else made this movie for you?
I think, like you said before, outside of Pacino and De Niro, like Val Kilmer just does such small nuances. For example, the scene when De Niro talks about how he's like, I'm out. If you watch Val Kilmer, his eyes kind of like, huh? Like, what? Like, this is like, where am I going to hang? Like, he is genuinely surprised. Like, this is the first time he's ever heard that, Neil is going to quit. And Val Kilmer's eyes kind of bubbled, going, wow, it's a small, nuanced performance of that I genuinely appreciate. And then Tom Sizemore does a tremendous job, too. Tom Sizemore, who, again, quotes Robert De Niro for saving his life because he had a drug addiction. De Niro showed up at his house with his mom and said, are you going to rehab or you're going to jail? And Tom Sizemore was like, all right, I'll do this. So, that's an amazing type of situation and story.
Tom Sizemore, he's been given, this is a guy who is consistently and constantly getting work, like top tier work, and yet he still is battling his demons. It's very
a good actor, man.
Right, because it's very rare for a lot of Hollywood to keep giving chance after chance after chance. You can look at Michael Madsen as a perfect example, right? As a guy who's no longer really getting any chances because of he's battling his demons. But Tom Sizemore is in every these movies. I mean, Saving Private Ryan, he's worked with the best. And hopefully he's turned that corner. I haven't seen anything recently, but
like I think they said it over and over, and directors constantly talk about it too, just like great bands. You could be the greatest guitarist, but you can't be a dick. And sometimes they'll just take a guitarist who's less than thou because this guy's a good hang. And Tom Sizemore must be a great hang and a great human. It just addiction makes him do bad things. So, and he's maybe not bad to people on set, but after the movie is done, when he's off in the wind, that's when things fall apart.
Right.
And it could be different as opposed to, the other actor allegedly maybe doing it on set. So there's a difference in professionalism that maybe Tom Sizemore is basically doing. Like on set, he's good, but it's after it's done that's the problem.
And that's why John Frusciante kept getting kicked out of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But that's a whole other story for a whole other podcast. Hey, people in the comments, and let us know who stood out for you in your cast that we rhymed off. I'm going to tell you, for me, she was in it for very few, only like a couple of scenes, literally a couple of scenes. But man, Natalie Portman, a 13-year-old Natalie Portman, like I think she portrayed a 13-year-old, brought it, man. I mean, I think she did not.
What do you mean brought it? She went over the top, like.
No, you know what it is? No, because having a kid, having the anxieties of a kid waiting for their dad to pick them up, they just want to be accepted and loved. I mean, her mom doesn't really give two shits about her. I mean,
she belongs, I believe, in the Mark Ruffalo overacting club because
get out of here. I thought she did a fantastic job, man. I actually forgot that she was in the movie. I thought she was good. What about Kevin Gage, who played Waingro?
Yeah, I think it was funny because the rumor was originally that the actor that was given was I think Michael Mann wanted to go back to the book and then basically hire the guy, what's his name, that was in Manhunter,
William Peterson.
No, the serial killer in that one. Oh goodness.
Brian Cox.
No. Oh goodness. I'll have to get back to it. I think I have to look at it, but he wanted to hire someone else, or maybe Silence of the Lamb. Anyways, he had another actor in mind. I think at the end of the day, he was fine. He paid it. It's a role that you needed someone to be menacing and kind of also have that weird, like maybe this person is a surprise, a serial killer.
Right.
But yeah, he was fine. Like,
here's the thing about the movie.
Here's
the thing about this movie, though. If De Niro hadn't let Waingro get away, a lot of this movie is done. A lot of it's predicated on Waingro being the confidential informant and making his way into the William Fitcher's who played Roger Van Zant, making his way into his office, and like a lot of this movie really kind of hinges on Waingro as this periphery individual who just somehow is tying it all together. Without him, you don't get the movie. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think so Michael Mann offered Ted Levine the role, but he didn't want to be typecast as the serial killer. So like, I'll do something else instead. But having, Buffalo Bill as Waingro would have been amazing because it would just sat there going, oh my God. So,
well, you would be forgiven if at the beginning of that scene, when Waingro walks into that diner, that if you don't for a second go, holy shit, is that Ted Levine? Is like, because they do bear a striking resemblance, right?
Like, it's weird. Did you know, before we jumped, just we're talking about casting, did you know that Keanu was supposed to be Chris in this movie?
I did not know that. So that's the character being played by Val Kilmer.
That's correct. And then so he was given the role. He was ready to go. Val Kilmer just finished Batman. And then
when you say just finished, like literally hours beforehand.
Yep. Yeah. And then we'll take Val Kilmer instead. And he basically was caught last minute.
Yeah.
Could you imagine this movie with Keanu Reeves? Like, it's just it's bonkers. I don't know. Like, I think because Keanu's done it, the gun stuff easily. But man, oh man, I just sit there going, how would this movie have operated if it was Keanu Reeves instead of Val Kilmer?
You know what?
Would this be a better movie or a worse movie?
No, 1995 Keanu is still coming off of Point Break. which was 92, I think, right? So the thing about Keanu Reeves is that he's blessed with good genes, and he looks a lot younger. You can put a bunch of makeup on him, but for Val Kilmer, he looked, he had some facial scars, but he's walking into that depot to grab the explosive
with the Arizona license plate or license.
Yeah, license, and it's a construction. It's for construction use, but he looks like somebody who has been doing construction for 10 years or so. He looks weathered. I think Keanu just would have been way too baby-faced to look as a guy who could walk in there and grab
put him in a ponytail and see what happens.
Dude, you saw him at the end of Point Break. He had his normal Keanu hair, which is that's just his hairstyle, the longer hair, and he still looks baby-faced. I don't think he would have been able to pull off the grizzled look that Val Kilmer had. But again, it's so funny, right? It's pre 9/11, post 9/11. You don't do that shit anymore. You can't just roll up into like I'm here to get the explosive for the construction site and show off your ID. The guy looks at it and writes down, all right, there you go. And off you go with a crate of explosives.
No.
What's your scene? What is it? What movie or what scene in this movie is like, if you have 15 minutes before you have to go out? The wife's like, "Come on, Stu, we got to go."
First 10 minutes.
15 minutes.
That first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes of that scene is the best.
This is the armored car robbery.
Yeah, it's the best. It everything else is basically it. This is the John Carter of Mars situation where everyone's basically ripped it off ever since that scene. How calculated they are. When Wayne Rowe shows up, like coming up from the back. Refill of coffee, knocks it, notices he's late, walks in, they go, the hockey mask, like everything is perfect to a T. And even when Moreno kills the guy and is having that whole conversation in the back of the truck, like everything is perfect in that movie. Into how fast they have to go through the bear bonds. It's movie magic. How
much time do they have before the police arrived?
It's like 3 minutes or something.
Yes, it was. Yeah, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Yeah, that was their. The police response time was 3 minutes.
And then De Niro, Bobby calling everyone slick. Let's go.
No,
that was the bank robbery. That was the bank robbery. Yeah, the bank robbery.
Yeah, but that was Tom Sizemore kept calling the guy slick.
Slick, yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Let us know in the comments what your favorite scene was. I'm funny feeling based on the low threshold of comments tonight, Stu, that maybe we didn't get people watching the movie along with us, which is too bad because I think they would have enjoyed it.
I think everyone's enjoying. I think everyone. Heat's a very dense movie, but it's worth the time and effort. So hopefully they'll go and watch it afterwards. But
I think it's easy to say the shootout scene from the bank robbery is the one again is also often used in a lot of movies. So it's easy to go that route. I am going to go though with the diner scene. I love heavy dialogue scenes. I love the nuances. I love the facial tics, the features. And the two, even though both of these guys, so if I remember, De Niro was 50, did I say 52 or so? Pacino was 55, 56, which aren't older guys, but you can sure as shit know that they were doing the Ron Popeil spray on hair with the color. They had some deep black hair that I know is not a natural. But I love that diner scene. It was just so what's interesting, and I'm sure you probably noticed, is that you actually don't hear anything in the background. And then when the conversation is over, you start to hear the clinking of glasses and the chatter of the other patrons in the diner. Like, it's that little thing where you're so focused on the dialogue of these two guys. Michael Mann literally cut out all the noise around. People are still moving around. People are eating, drinking, talking, but you hear nothing. And then he slowly brings those levels back in once the conversation is over. It's like so masterfully done, right?
And Michael Mann, such a mensch. All the actors and stuff in the background that worked in the restaurant, he got them all stag cards. So that's the type of person he is. So just a great guy.
Does anybody in the comments have a favorite scene while we're waiting for that? I remember it being in the theater watching this, and the bank robbery scene, I don't think I've heard, and even when I saw it the other day when I watched this movie, the sounds of the gunfire is just so alarming and jarring. right? There's oftentimes, it's Foley work, right? They're doing it in a sound studio and whatever, and they're recreating the sounds of these weapons and guns. I don't think they did any. I don't think they did any audio replacement on those gun sounds. I think they were mic'd up. They sounded fabulous, and it added a lot of reality, to that bank scene. So yeah. All right. Nobody else in the comments has got any. Lewis has a question. Sizemore or Sizemore? I believe it's Tom Sizemore, right?
Sizemore.
Maybe it's Sizemore. Okay, so Sizemore. Just call him Tom and make things a lot easier. Jesus. John's in here with a comment. John from the Heroes World Sidekick Show, as well as the main podcast. And for What Did I Miss on Thursdays? He says when they call off the one heist, it's like 2 shots of guys staring at the camera. Don't know what the hell you're talking about, John.
John's like, I got nothing. Carry on.
How is it that John can still manage to not make any sense when he's not here on the show?
And to Gord's point, like the fact that the realism is that for that scene with the vehicles, they pre-shot gun holes in the vehicles. So when they flipped the cars over, it already had all the holes in it. So it was like ready to go, like for the nuance and the details of the vehicles being smashed and all that stuff in it. So yeah, they were legitimately all over the place. It's crazy.
What do you think about Angelina Jolie's father, Mr. John Voight, in that role as
this
Nate?
Was his tour de force. This was the beginning of him as a character actor. This pretty much after you can project this. After he did this movie, he was basically the character actor and everything else.
Yeah.
So this was the start of him being that guy, and the weird hair and the weird facial hair. Hey, it worked. So
yeah.
So
just to clarify, John sent us clarification. He's talking about when the guy bumps. So they're Chris and De Niro are in. They're robbing that, going through the warehouse to get through to the bank, into a bank vault, I believe. And Pacino and all the guys are in a van. What do you call those vans? It's an undercover cop van, but they're doing for surveillance van. Yeah. And some guy who's just must be a rookie cop, whatever. He leans back. He's got his M16 strapped behind his back like a backpack going to school on a Monday, and he hits the side of the truck. De Niro hears it in the middle of the night, and you can see he's looking out, and the camera is inside of the surveillance van, and it zooms up on the infrared of De Niro's face, right? And then he even tells Chris, he goes, we're out. And he goes, I'm almost there. And he goes, we're out, like that. And I'm like, and he's like, come on, we got to go. And I always thought it was funny that Chris, Val Kilmer, decides to like take off his overalls. I'm like, dude, you got to run. This guy's telling you got to get the fuck out of there. And you're like, well, let me get undressed first. I got to, make sure I'm not. I thought it was like hilarious. But yeah, so that's what John was saying. I thought that was good. That was a good scene as well.
I do have a question for Sarah. That she's still alive in the chat.
Okay.
If Sarah was to show up to Gord's house for this first time and he had no furniture whatsoever, empty house, no furniture, would she still be there? Is that as a thing? Like as someone who shows up to someone's house that you're dating, no furniture, is that not an automatic like red flag? We'll wait to see what she says, because that definitely happened in this movie. She kept on going, but or if you had a conversation where it's like, hey, I was born and raised in this small town. What about you? What are you asking me questions for? What?
Yeah. Oh, wow, aggressive guy. I'm just being friendly, man. You're all up in my shit.
Thank you, Sarah, for the confirmation that if you show up to someone's house, he had no furniture whatsoever. Yeah, that's a red flag.
Is it a red flag, or would we be more concerned if there was like plastic tarp on the floor?
Like I just good. Like Edie must be in a weird place in her life that she can just date a guy that has no furniture, blow up at her for the littlest of things.
And and he's in sales. So that, first of all, you might have a nice crib, but if you have maybe you don't do well. If you have no furniture, it's a red flag on two counts. One is that this guy obviously something's wrong with him. Number two, maybe he sucks at his job and is not somebody that you want to be hanging out with. What other Michael Mann movies can you recommend, or do you recommend, or even other properties of his that he's
I just read the next comment. The mood lighting on
Oh.
the bed frame.
Yeah. I had a lava lamp next to my bed to make the mood right, but again, the 90s.
Yeah. Yep.
What did you have?
I think I had one of those.
You had a pull chain on your fan. Look, it's got 3 levels of light. Click, 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 click.
I think it was, I think I had a beer light or something. Anyways, a neon beer light back in the day. Sure.
A neon beer light?
Yeah.
Like a sign? Like the one that you would get like
at a bar or something. Yeah, I had that in my room. It was on a garage sale. I thought it was cool, and I bought it and I put it in my room. And it was just weird because like in the night, I was like, it just looked like it was like a green light, and you're like, I think it was like a Heineken light, and I was just like, what? Just my room just like was a green Heineken light. So yeah.
Oh wow. I had the lava lamps. I often thought that made me super chill and cool.
Nice.
What Michael Mann property would you recommend? I understand he's actually made a sequel to this via book. That came out in 2019. Yes. I had no idea. I have not read it. But what would you recommend to somebody else if they enjoyed this movie for them to watch?
Val Kilmer had a ridiculous idea for a sequel, and I'll tell you quickly. Val Kilmer had an idea a few years ago before the circumstances that happened to him, where his character would be dating Natalie Portman's character, and it's kind of a guess who comes to dinner situation, and that's how he would interact with Vincent, Al Pacino's character, that would show up with the daughter, and like they're dating, and then show up to the police, and that's the new cat and mouse situation. Bear in mind that Natalie
That's kind of weird.
Natalie Portman was like 14 and he was like 34 at the time, but carry on.
Yeah, that seems kind of weird.
But that was his idea.
Okay.
What movie, Michael Mann movie, would I recommend?
Yeah, or any property. Like, I mean, we obviously know he worked on Miami Vice, a television series. A lot of people love that show.
The answer is always the right answer. It's Manhunter.
Yeah.
If you love True Detective, if you like any of that, basically it's Manhunter. The fact that movie says so much with so little. And the original CSI man, William Pearson's in it.
Garrett.
Yeah, so it's incredible. So it's a movie that I'll go back to and watch, and the nuance and performances of that movie, it's great.
So for people who aren't sure, so this is 1988, I believe. Manhunter. Now this was the prequel to Silence of the Lambs. It was remade into Red Dragon by Brett Ratner, I believe.
Yeah.
Way back in the mid 2000s. And is nowhere near as good as what Manhunter was. But yes, Brian Cox from Succession, or if you want to go back and talk about comic book stuff, he was Stryker in the X-Men movies. He played Hannibal Lecter. And so it was very different. It was a very different feel of a movie for sure. But yeah, that was the first Hannibal Lecter appearance on screen. That was the first book before they went into the Silence of the Lambs. So
Stephen Lang, Joan Allen, Brian Cox, like Dennis Fiora, that movie is just a ton of fantastic actors. So
yeah. Okay, cool. I have just been watching, now I'm on a Michael Mann thing. I think this is all kind of started because John said he wanted to watch Miami Vice with Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx. And so I'm on this Michael Mann kick right now. So I just finished Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. And that was 2004. That's quite a movie, man. I don't know if it's when the last time you've seen that movie, but he does two different filming styles. He does very guerrilla style where they're really running out with the camera, following the outdoor scenes. So anytime anything goes outside, it's just a dude with the camera following around, kind of like low budget, like guerrilla style filmmaking. And then anything that was interior, it's obviously shot. You can tell it's on dolly tracking and everything else, and it's just shot very clean and slick. So that is currently on Netflix. Miami Vice is currently on Netflix. I'm going to go back and rewatch that. I remember not enjoying it very much when I first saw it. And listen, he adapted his own IP, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
was the guy that created Miami Vice, a TV series. So, and you had mentioned Last of the Mohicans earlier, which is Daniel Day-Lewis. It's
Daniel
a
Day-Lewis,
very,
baby.
very good movie. And the last one I'm going to mention for me is The Insider with Russell Crowe. I'm a big
What,
news.
you don't like Black Hat
No,
with Chris Helmsworth? You didn't watch that?
I don't think I've
genre
ever
movie?
watched it.
Oh
No.
man, that's the last movie he made. The last movie he made, Black Hat. It's like Chris Helmsworth plays like a hacker or like a computers expert, and oh man, it's such a weird movie. it is very like, yeah, it's I don't even know what to say about Black Hat. It is really weird, and you just sit there and smile and nod through it. But it has some moments. But yeah, it's worth a watch.
All right. Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh yeah, it's not great, but not bad either. It's weird Michael Mann film. It came out in like 2000 and
I think it's
2015.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you might be right. Sorry, I was
15, 16. But yeah,
2015.
it did not make money in the movie theater, but it was definitely something.
So for me, I was a big fan of The Insider, and now because this is again I'm a bit of a news guy, and I love this, but this is like the true life story about Jeffrey Wingand, who was the whistleblower for Big Tobacco, which kind of started like in the 90s. The whole thing about Big Tobacco lying to you because, oh my God, wait, cigarettes are not good for you. No. But it was a great movie. Russell Crowe. He played heavyset before he was actually heavyset, so it was a good movie. Gord saying, "What about Ali with Will Smith?" Yeah, another great movie. Again, I think Will Smith did a fantastic job in that movie,
and John Voight playing a very important role in Ali as well. So he played one of the most well-known broadcasters as well, and had that interaction with Ali. So it is a John Voight special. I think, was he nominated for an award for that one too? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, he was, for an Academy Award for that, I think.
Yeah,
because he played Howard Cosell.
That's correct.
Yeah. I didn't have to look that up. I remember that he had that voice down, that Howard Cosell voice.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Speaking, before we finish, I know can we talk about the fact that we talked about before about it's perfect to end this conversation on, you talked about Emmys, you talked about awards.
Yeah.
This movie came out in 95.
Yeah.
In 96. How many awards was this movie nominated for? Do you know off the top of your head?
I didn't look. No. I don't think any. If I remember correctly, I thought none.
That's correct. 0.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah.
We'll do this little game right here. Best Picture. Can you remember what were the movies nominated for Best Picture in 1996?
Was it?
Chat, you're welcome to join us on this adventure. I'll slowly start going. Sense and Sensibility. Al Pacino, The Postman. Babe.
Oh,
Apollo
Pig in the
13.
City, or just Babe 1?
Just Babe 1.
Okay, Apollo 13.
Apollo 13, and the eventual winner, Braveheart.
Right. Yeah.
Braveheart. The Best Director,
It was Mel Gibson got Best Director.
That was Chris Noonan for Babe, Tim Robbins for Dead Man Walking, Michael Fig for Leaving Las Vegas. Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Best
Nick
Actor.
Cage.
Best Actor, Nicolas Cage. Richard Dreyfuss for Mr. Holland's Opus. Anthony Hopkins for Nixon. Sean Penn for Dead Man Walking. Massimo Torresi for the El Pastino, The Postman. De Niro did not get nominated for either Casino or Heat. Like, this is incredible. It's unbelievable what happened during that. Best Supporting Actor, Tim Roth, Rob Roy, Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys, Ed Harris, 13.
Pitt won for 12 Monkeys.
No, James Cromwell, Babe, Kevin Spacey, Usual Suspects.
Oh, okay. I should Kevin Spacey won for Usual Suspects. That's right. Yeah, as Kaiser Sose, or also as what was his name?
Verber.
Verber Kent, right?
Yeah. That's an incredible situation that sometimes just that movie got no love. I think out of all those movies that I mentioned, a Best Picture, I think of course, seen Heat more than any of them. I don't think I've seen any of those movies outside of like a cutscene here or there from Apollo 13 since. So that just speaks volumes for
Well, I've watched it, and that was Ron Howard, right? So I've watched Apollo 13 a fair amount of times. I watched Braveheart quite a bit. I actually kind of liked it, despite whatever. I thought it was good, but for me, I couldn't believe the fact that you're right. Like you're telling me this Sense and Sensibility and Il Postino. I mean, Harvey Weinstein at the max is like pushing all that money to get those movies through for the award ceremony. So his startup company called Miramax could gain some attention, and that was now a whole different story there, but. Yeah, you're right. The fact that didn't Sharon Stone win for Casino? Which now we're on a totally different transgentle.
Yeah, I don't even remember who
transgression. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember the details of the.
Okay, but still, you're right. I mean, like, yeah, you've got these two great actors who did fantastic jobs, and it's shocking that they were not, especially coming out in December, where generally you would get some good award buzz for those type of movies. These guys were snubbed. That's.
Oh, shitty. I think Best Supporting Actress was won by Susan Sarandon won for Dead Man Walking.
Wow.
And then Supporting Actress was won by Mira Sorvino for The Mighty Aphrodite, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
but,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought Sharon Stone won for Casino. Maybe not. I guess not.
No. Best Actress was Susan Sarandon, Elizabeth Shue for Leaving Las Vegas, Sharon Stone Casino, Meryl Streep, The Bridges of Madison County, and Emma Thompson in Sense and Sensibility. Jeez. That is quite a list.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is a stroll down memory lane. We talked about snubs and shocks from the Emmys of last night. That is a snub and a shock du jour from 1995, 1996 at the Oscars. That's crazy.
Because think about it. Heat, like you said, came out December
of 1995. That's award season movie. Like
that's award season time. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's crazy. We hope that you enjoyed Stu and I going on about Heat. You can tell we are two big fans of it. I think that if you haven't watched, I know that Lewis was like, nah, I'm not interested. I would really urge you to reconsider. It is on Amazon Prime. I'm gonna tell you what I did. Even though I have the DVD, I went upgraded to the 4K on iTunes, and I gotta tell you, it looks fantastic. It's $15 on iTunes or Google Play, and I think through YouTube as well. So it's worth your $15 to.
I think, as Jacob mentioned very early, even before this stream even started, like Batman, The Dark Knight, every movie is basically doing the best rendition of Heat. If you like that type of heist movie, John loves Den of Thieves, and Den of Thieves is like the poor man's version of Heat. They tried so hard to rip it off, as every movie's done. It's an homage of homages. So if you like any of that heist movie, whether we talk about that terrible Jason Statham movie, Wrath of Man, you should have just watched Heat. So.
Yeah, just watch Heat. So this movie is 2 hours and 43 minutes in runtime. You can definitely pound it out. But you know what else is 2 hours and 43 minutes, Stu, is the new James Bond movie that's coming out on October the 6th. And because of that, John has decided, he said, I am pulling ownership card. And we were watching the next 2 weeks. We were doing a James Bond watch. I know Sarah right now is maybe jumping off a cliff in Jasper to say, forget it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. Next week, we are watching Skyfall, the 23rd movie in the James Bond series, the third starring Daniel Craig. Then the week after that, we'll be doing Spectre, which was number 24 and came out, was the last James Bond, Daniel Craig movie before this coming October the 8th with No Time to Die. So next week, it is Skyfall. It is Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, Ralph Fiennes, Javier Bardem. It is on Crave. Both of those movies are on Crave. If you really want to, you can watch all of the Daniel Craig James Bond collection on Crave. In fact, you can watch all 24 movies on Crave right now. You are more than welcome to do so. And don't come at me and tell me Never Say Never Again. It's not on there because it is not Bond canon. Thank you very much. That is not. It's a Sony movie. It is not a Broccoli production from Eon. Thank you. Just a remake of Thunderball, and we can get into that one other day. So that is what we are doing next week. Coming up this week, we have on Thursday, it's Hey, What Did I Miss? With Chris and Pat, guest starring myself and John, where it really is last minute details where Chris and Pat are trying to figure out, wait, are we doing news? What's happening with pictures? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Next week on the Heroes World podcast, I know we'll be doing What If episode 7, which I believe stars Thor. Party Thor. And we'll see what else is coming up for next Sunday. I would definitely keep your notification bells on for any last minute trailer drops or reactions, although I don't have any inside scoop on what's dropping this week, but you never know what'll happen. And that's all we got for that.
We should ask Sarah next time for her birthday request to throw a movie down for you guys to watch as a birthday gift.
Sarah said, I do not watch any of the James Bond. This is not a good birthday gift for me. October the 1st, just saying. Well, you know what? Sometimes you go to birthday parties and loot bags are shit, Sarah. So
Sarah, no, I back you. You throw another movie and I'll support you 100%.
Wait a minute. You're a big fan of the Bond movies. I don't know.
I am.
You're backpedaling right now. Gordon's asking, what about Halloween movies? Hey, we are doing Halloween movies. We just don't need to have 7 weeks of Halloween movies, Gord.
Shots fired. Yeah, we can do all. We can do always lots of Halloween movies. I'm all done with that.
Lewis is my buddy.
When was the last time you watched Hocus Pocus? Can we not do that one, bad boy?
I watched it last Halloween, actually.
With the kids?
Yeah, actually
by yourself.
Yeah, by myself. I'm a huge Kathy to Jimmy fan, and I was like,
"Oh God, Sarah Jessica Parker,
yeah, Bette Midler, The Wind Beneath My Wings." John, watch Never Say Never instead. No, don't do that. It's not an official James Bond movie. And there we go. So, at any rate, we are doing Skyfall. So please join us next week, Stu. Man, I hope you had fun. Thanks for coming. Yeah. I actually think you're back next week. You're going to be delving into the Skyfall with us, I believe.
I think I might be.
Talk
I think Adele's going to have to play me in and play me out. So this is what's going to happen. Yeah. Sarah, shots fired. Wow. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
so
I will be championing the fact that we must do Shawshank at one point on the Sidekick Show. So that will be my suggestion for us to do one day. Shawshank Redemption, one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Cool. And
Rob's not down with that. Rob's not a fan of Shawshank.
No, I actually like Shawshank. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but again, it was one of those movies where I watched it quite a bit, and then, as we said before, it's hard to get back to rewatching these movies.
Stopped cable. That's why. You stopped watching TBS, and that's why you haven't seen Shawshank. That's 100% why you're not watching Shawshank.
So listen, everybody, please. Thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you tuned in live tonight, whether you were listening on the audio podcast, again, follow us on the Instagrams, on the Facebooks. It's Heroes World Online. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. John, Andre, they are at Heroes World up at in Markham at Warden and Highway 7. They always have lots of cool shit in the store. And as Andre said on Sunday, they have just reorganized the store yet again. I feel like they're playing a giant game of Tetris. They're moving things around all the time. So definitely go check them out. Big thank you to Stu. A big thank you to John for not showing up tonight. And a big thank you to all of you for watching.
What? John, you've never seen Shawshank Redemption? What?
All right. Well, there we go.
What? Oh my dear God.
That John Ho, he sure is one hell of a man.
Oh my goodness. We're gonna I'm just happy I get more Clancy Brown in my life. It's gonna be great to see him just being, Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna add that to the mix some point in time.
All right.
Wow, what revelations.
You can check us out next week. We'll see you here next Monday, 8 p.m. James Bond, Skyfall. It's on Crave. See you guys later. Appreciate it. Stu, thanks, buddy.
Man, thanks for having me.
Bye. My name's John. I don't know anything.
Seriously hasn't watched Shawshank.
Yeah,
my name's John. Lord.
Oh,
what the
no.
world?
I also haven't watched Batman or Superman. I don't even read comic